I'm hearing no one. It's a quiet group this morning. All right. Well, if no one has a preference, I'm going to just start from the beginning of the program. We'll go through the operations site where you can find information, how to do all of the reports and applications and everything. And then if you have specific questions, we'll circle back to things at the end, if that sounds okay with everybody. So we'll go ahead and get started. I just have a slide deck here. So this is the Colorado State Conservation Board's matching grant program. The main source of information for all of the grant programs run through CSCB is going to be the district operations website. So if you haven't familiarized yourself with this website yet, I highly suggest that you do. This has more than just grant information. It has all of our district operations documents and resources, deadlines, things like that. So it's a really helpful resource. You can find the link to the district operations website at the bottom in all of our CSCB email signatures. So if that hasn't been directly sent to you, go ahead and look there and go through it, ask questions. We're all here to help you through that. This is what the grant specific page looks like when you click there. So we have a few different programs. The one we're going to focus on today is the matching grant program. If you guys go to the district operations site and have questions about any of the other programs, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss with you at any point in time. So we're going to start with the operational materials. So the operational materials are going to be all of the things needed once you've been awarded a grant. So all of the resources for what's allowed, what's not allowed, how to file for reimbursement, how to fill out forms, how to go through both the quarterly and final reports, the deadlines for all of those things. Everything can be found under the operational grant materials. When you click on the matching grant link on the district operations site, you're going to open up something that looks very similar to this. I keep all of the operational materials in the dark maroon toolbar. So that should be all of the current year's operational materials. Everything in white is either an optional tool for you or an application of some sort. So we have, you can see multiple things in here. We have the operational guidelines, the reimbursement form, the cost share form. So if you're doing landowner cost share, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with that form. And then our grant quarterly reports and our final reports. You can ignore, this is a little bit of a dated presentation, so you can ignore the very bottom where it says be sure to download all forms. The website is set up now so that when you click on the link to a form or a document, it just automatically downloads to your computer. So when you click that, you'll see the little download icon on the bottom toolbar on your computer, and you're going to want to go into your computer's files and probably the downloads folder to open that up. And then you can type into it. You don't have to worry about filling out the whole form online and then not being able to save it. It should save to your computer just fine that way. So we're going to start with the operational guidelines. This is really your main resource for the matching grant program. This is very detailed in what is and is not allowable within the program. Kind of goes through how to fill out forms. It has all of the deadlines for the quarterly final reports. Pretty much everything that we have thought of so far, and we're always learning and getting asked tough questions that we don't have answers to yet. So as we fumble through those things and get answered new questions and stuff, we keep these operational guidelines updated. So they're really the main, most comprehensive resource you're going to have for this program. And this just shows you where you can find those on the district operations site. And then this is the first page of those guidelines. So you know what they look like when you open them up, make sure you're in the right place. And again, this has pretty well everything you can think of. It's very organized, has a table of contents. You can skip ahead to the sections you need. It has things on rules around cost share and how much is allowable to go to your board and board family members. It has rules on what can be used as match, what can be reimbursed. It also has a lot of resources for if your grant is bringing in-kind match and the source of labor. We have some really helpful links to labor sites that will help you figure out what the rates for those are and how much match you can get for that. Make sure you guys are maximizing that aspect of your grants. And then the next kind of more condensed form of the district operational guidelines is down under helpful information. This is the key points form. So this is kind of the one-page FAQ that we produced that asks kind of the more frequently asked common questions if you just need a quick guide resource for the program. And this is what that looks like. So has kind of the big ticket topics, what to expect when you apply, what's expected of you. We kind of did a quick rundown of that, the reporting system, the reimbursement claims, the obligation to spend funds, and matching funds and that nature. And again, if anything you can't find within these documents, you are always welcome to either reach out to your field specialist or me directly, and we can always jump on a Zoom call. I can jump on the phone with you. Really, I'm open to meeting with you guys at any point in time to discuss any of these things. The next main form we have is the reimbursement form. So this is how you get reimbursed for what you spend on your grant throughout the year. And again, you can find this under the operational materials. The reimbursement forms can be submitted no more than monthly, but really just as you guys spend money, or some districts save it up till the end of the year. We're really flexible in working with you guys to get through that. So just reach out if you have any questions about timing and things like that. This is what the reimbursement form looks like. So we put on here this box in the top right-hand side for CDA use only. You don't even have to worry about that. It won't let you type in it, even if you wanted to. So really just ignore that piece. The first thing you're going to want to check when you open up the reimbursement form is that you have the correct year. So that's highlighted up there at the top. Obviously, this is not the most recent form, but you're going to want to make sure that you have the 2022 form for this year. You're going to want to fill out your conservation district name and then the project name. Usually that's just the name that you guys submitted your grant under when you applied. And then the dates of reimbursement, to and from dates there. And then this first section, the very top section down here, the expense item to claim, this is where you're going to enter the things that you want reimbursed for. So you're going to want to label this exactly the same categories that you used when you submitted your application. So if you used landowner labor and materials, or not landowner labor, I'm sorry, contracted labor and materials as your two kind of expense items on your application budget, you're going to want to stick to those same categories when you submit reimbursement. So we can keep track. We make sure that we're not variancing more than 10% between line items and things like that. If you run into a situation with your grant where you need to add a line item for an unexpected circumstance or something of that nature, that's when you reach out to me, and we work with the CSCB board to make those changes as needed. So that's one of the main points there. And then on the other side, you're going to want to make sure that you list in the request side of the form, not the advance side. We do allow advances under special circumstance, and you can read through the operational guidelines for what those look like. If you are looking to do something like that, just reach out to me and I'm happy to help you through that process. But this is going to be the portion of the money that you want to have returned to you. So if you're doing a 50-50 cost sharing, you're using 50% of that as match, make sure that you're only putting up at this top section what you want to be paid back for. And then on the bottom section of the form, this is where we have our match items. Now match, we're a little more flexible with the match side of things as far as your application budget goes. You can have a little more variance in adding categories as they come up if you have new things donated to your grant, or you decide you need something and want to purchase more educational materials for a booth or something like that that's within your grant program. You can add those things as match. We don't track these categories as strictly as we do the reimbursement categories. We have two sections. We have cash match and in-kind match. So cash match is going to be money spent on the grant. In-kind is going to be donated items. So donated items, donated labor, those types of things. And then you can just explain over in the sources whether those came from districts paying for things or an outside entity. Like a lot of times we have donated labor from the NRCS helping with cost share and things like that. Or if you have people who came to an educational event and volunteered their time to speak, you just put their name over there or whatever entity they're representing, that kind of thing. And we just keep track of that within our reporting on the back side. And then the very bottom section, you are allowed this space to enter any special circumstance notes or anything you want me to know. I do read it, so you're welcome to use that space to just jot down whatever thoughts you have. And then you'll put the name of the person who filled out the form and the date that it was filled out. And then you will email this to me and I will process it for you guys. The other resource we have within the reimbursement form, at the very bottom, there's multiple tabs. So the very first one is highlighted in blue. That's the actual form tab. Then we have a process and instructions tab. So that kind of goes through what I just described, kind of step by step, what everything means, how to fill it out, where to put certain things. We tried to be as comprehensive as we could on this. So this is a resource I feel like a lot of districts don't realize is on the reimbursement form. Feel free to look it through. If you have questions about things or if you see any errors in it, feel free to reach out to me. And then the very next tab over is an example. So we just filled out kind of a general example so you can kind of see what a finalized form looks like, where we put things, and hopefully this helps answer a little bit of questions as well. And then the very last tab is a resource tab for you if you want to utilize this spreadsheet to keep track of your expenses, the actual full expense spent on the grant, where things are being reported to match. It's kind of just a generalized form we created as a resource to you guys. You're not required to use it by any means, but if it's helpful to you, feel free. The next form is going to be the cost share agreement. So this is the agreement between landowners and the district as far as landowner cost share agreements. So fencing, irrigation, upgrades, windbreaks, things like that usually fall under this cost share. And again, you can find this within the operational materials on the district operations site. And this is what that cost share form looks like. So it's also an Excel document. The biggest thing, so there's two different sides to the top. So at the very top, you're going to want to put the name of your conservation district, the name of the landowner who is receiving the cost share, and then their address and information over there. The landowner district ID is an optional portion we put in there. Some districts like to keep track of their landowners by special invoice numbers or things like that. You're welcome to utilize that space if it is pertinent to you. And then this applicant's request for practices. So this is where people get confused a lot of times. This form can be a little bit encumbersome. So on the left-hand side, this is what the landowner and the district agree on before any work happens, what they are wanting to. So this is what the district would essentially be approving as a cost share and what the landowner is requesting. And then on the right-hand side where it says practices completed, this would be after the cost share has been completed, the work has been done. This is where you're going to enter what was actually done. So sometimes we can see pretty big variances in what was applied for and what was actually completed for a multitude of reasons. But that's what those two areas are for. And then in the black would be the actual cost of what was done. Then it allows, if the district set a maximum, say the district says, we only want to maximally grant $2,500 per landowner. And this person's cost share ended up costing in total $3,500, or their portion of it ended up costing $3,500. That next line down in red is an opportunity for you to deduct the amount that the district is not willing to pay towards that, but the landowner essentially would pick up that extra money. And then at the very bottom, you can add in, so that would come to, it would be $1,000 in the red, and then at the very bottom in blue, that would be your $2,500 cost share. The other important thing to remember is usually these cost shares are set on a 50-50 cost share. So the district is usually covering 50% of the cost of these practices, and the landowner is covering the other 50%. So you'll want to make sure you put that in. There's an area here that says percent with a C and parentheses. That's the area to say what percentage the district is actually paying. And you want to make sure that you specify that and you write those numbers in. So that very last white column where the dollar sign is, that is not going to be the full cost. That's going to be the cost the district, the percentage the district is picking up, if that makes sense. So if you have a 50-50 cost share on $7,000 worth of work, that would come out to $3,500. Then if your district set a limit of $2,500, then you deduct that extra $1,000 at the bottom there and come out in the blue with your $2,500. And I know that's very confusing. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. We can talk about it again at the end, or if you leave this coffee hour and think about it later and have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to do that. And then over on the right-hand side here, this is the bottom portion of the form. Your board and the landowner and NRCS are going to sign off several places here. So the very top signature box there is for the landowner. That's them essentially saying, this is indeed what I'm requesting to have done on my property. The next line down that's circled in blue here is the, this is going to be the conservation district, usually a district president, whoever the district elects to have sign off on these, that's going to say, yes, we approve. Essentially, we're approving this application from the landowner. Then at the very bottom down here, you're going to have in the red, you're going to have NRCS sign off as the authorizing technical oversight. And then after the grant is completed, you're going to repeat some signatures. So over on the right-handed side, the landowner is going to sign off again saying, yes, this was done. And then the conservation district is going to sign off as well, saying we approve, essentially. So before the work is done, you're going to have two signatures. You're going to have the landowner's request signature, which is over here on the left-hand side. And then below that, you're going to have the district's approving signature. After the cost share has been completed, you're going to have NRCS sign off saying that it was done appropriate to technical standards. And then you're going to have the landowner sign off again saying, yes, this work was completed. And then you're going to have the conservation district sign off again as well. So there's multiple places there. Let's see here. There's also an examples tab. So same thing as the reimbursement form. The highlighted blue tab is your actual form, and then there's some resource tabs. So we went ahead and filled out an example to kind of show you what things look like. It also has some explanations written in there to hopefully help guide you guys through that. And then again, another resource. So this is another tracking resource, pretty well the same form as what you can find on the reimbursement form. And then we're going to get into some reporting. So quarterly reports you guys will have. So quarterly reports work a little bit different than some of the other grant programs. We require a quarterly report up until the point you finish your project and you submit a final report. So we have some districts that only submit one quarterly report, and then they finish their project pretty early in the year, and their next report to me is a final report, and then we're done requiring any additional reporting. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And again, you can find that quarterly report on the district operations site. And this is what that quarterly report looks like. One of the other big things to mention is that if your project hasn't had any, so usually the first quarter, we find that pretty commonly, most districts, it's cold, it's not really conducive to outside work and things like that. So most districts don't have a lot of activity on those grants in the first quarter. That is perfectly acceptable. You will still want to submit your quarterly report on time. You just will fill in the explanation that you haven't gotten to the place where you've started activity. And it'll be very short and simple in that respect. There's a lot of fill in the blank places. So everywhere there's a yellow box is a place for you to fill in. It asks questions about the progress of the grant. If any actual things have been completed, like you've reached out to landowners already, you've already put in 500 feet of fence or windbreak or things like that, this is your opportunity to kind of present those numbers as they happen. And then it also allows for any challenges that the district may be facing in terms of the grant, a place for you to explain that and kind of keep the CSCB board up to date on how things are going. These quarterly reports are due the same time every year. So matching grant quarterly reports are due March 20th, July 20th, October 20th, and then your final report is due December 20th. And then final report, same thing, you can find it on the district operations site. This is what the final report looks like. The first bit here is just some requirements. So we have some mapping requirements for noxious weeds. The matching grant program does require a publicity article, so we just ask that you attach that here, have kind of a cover sheet and things like that. There's some final report format explanation below that, as far as like your actual narrative and what that looks like. And then the one that causes probably the most questions is this measurable deliverables table. And it is exactly the same table that you're going to see on your application. One of the biggest questions I get is, do we hold you to the numbers on your application? No, we do not. We understand things change. Your application is the best estimate you can give us at that point in time, but we do not expect the numbers to match. We totally understand that things happen and change, and that is what this is for. It's just for us to see how things went throughout the year. On the blue hand side, that's where you're going to actually put in numbers. So number of landowners reached. Another big question I get is for educational projects, how do we report some of these things? Last year, the CSCB board went through and kind of audited our entire matching grant program, and we've added some more specific questions, more specific measurable deliverables table to the actual education projects. So that will be a change happening this year that you guys will see on those forms, and hopefully makes that a lot easier and a lot more straightforward for you guys. The other column on here, this green column, we do not expect you to put any explanations in here for us. This is a measurable we utilize on the back side of keeping track of what our grants are accomplishing. All we ask is that you just check off what is actually pertinent to the numbers you're putting in here. So are they excuse me, helping to provide economic viability to your area of the state? Are they being socially supportive and ecologically sound? And we put some explanations of what those mean up in the top there. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me with any of those. And then this is the last page here. And then the big topic now, because we're about to send out our solicitations for the 2023 matching grant program. So this is where you can find, once those are up, you will get an email from me. I email all of the districts once we have that up on the district operations site. I will send the deadline for that. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I'm also happy to look things over for you guys and just do kind of a general spelling, grammar kind of check on applications, make sure that everything is spelled out according to guideline, that kind of stuff. Feel free. I ask that you give me at least a week before the deadline before you submit those to me, so I have enough time to give them the time they deserve and look them over. So I also am happy to do that for you guys. So the very first thing, same as the operational guidelines, we have an entire document dedicated to application guidelines. So this will go through how to fill out applications, again, what's acceptable under the matching grant program, what is not, what's allowable, what is not, kind of give you guys some project ideas. It also has the same dates, so you know what you're signing up for as far as reporting goes. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We also have a one-pager fact sheet for the application process itself. So this is what that looks like, goes over the most common questions we get about the matching grant applications. And then this is, so we are very transparent in our review process. You will find the actual document that the review committee uses to score applications on our district operations site. If you have any questions about how things are scored, what the board is going to be looking at when they're going through, or what the committee is going to be looking at as they go through applications. That is up on the district operations site as well. And then the application narrative. So this is your actual application. This is what that looks like. So we do ask for your district name, DUNS number, when it expires, if there's any partnering districts, the date that you're submitting it, what the title is, and then we ask you guys a bunch of questions about, and this has changed a little bit since then because we have added a specific section to education, but this is going to ask you all kinds of questions about what you're doing, what the outcomes are that you expect or hope for. If you have any questions going through this, feel free to reach out. It has multiple pages, multiple options. Again, it has this measurable deliverables table. This is just your best estimate on what the potential outcome of your grant is. And then the other half of the application is going to be your application budget. So this looks a lot like the reimbursement forms and things like that, in that very first tab is the actual budget form. And then we have a couple of resource tabs. So we have budget notes and budget questions, places for you guys to explain what you've put into your grant, where it's coming from, things like that. And again, there's a whole section down here on how to fill this out if you have any questions on what goes where. If something is absolutely not allowed for reimbursement, you will not be able to enter it. So you'll see that on contracted services, landowner labor, and district paid indirect. We don't allow those under reimbursement under the matching grant program. So those cells are white. You can't type in a white cell. So we tried to make it a little bit user friendly in that regard as well. And this is just those second pages. So we have the budget notes. This allows you to say this source of match is for this, or if you put something generalized like educational booth, what exactly that breaks out to, things like that. One of the big suggestions we have is explaining if you have admin, we do allow a 10% of the overall grant award to go towards administration. If you're utilizing that 10%, it is helpful to the committee for you to break out exactly what that's being used for. How many hours are going towards reports, if they're overseeing other things. It's just helpful to them to understand that piece of it. And then on the right hand side here, these are specific budget questions. The committee does go through and look at your answers to these, so make sure you're answering them in your application. And then we have a section at the very bottom of the district operations site for helpful information. And this is things like those one-page fact sheets, tracking. So we have some examples for labor match letters. If you guys have people matching labor, that kind of stuff. We'll go through a couple of those. This is what in-kind, it just explains what in-kind is, how to track it, things like that. And then this is that landowner match or partner labor match letters and what they look like. They're just examples for you guys so you don't have to start from scratch. And then we have some optional tracking tools. These are just some general spreadsheets. You can find them again at the bottom of the page that are just meant to be resources. You don't have to use them, but if they're helpful to you guys in keeping track of what's going on within your grant, we put them up there in the hope that they'll help somebody and you don't have to, again, kind of start from scratch and make your own. And there's multiple for match, information, calculations, things like that. There's quite a few up there actually. And then that is the end of my presentation. I will say there's one section that's been added since this presentation was made, and that is a training section. So this is being recorded today. This will be added to that resource bank. We've also done one on quarterly reports, and we're going to add some on reimbursement, things like that. They're a little bit shorter than today's, just as resources. If you forget something and want to go back and utilize those as resources, you are welcome to do so. And then I did see we have a couple of chats, so I will look at those first. Here. Oh, thank you, Nikki. Does anybody have any specific questions or anything that they'd like to discuss as far as the matching grants go?
Abby, this is Casey, and I have a question on the NRCS technical oversight. Some of our projects might not necessarily require that, so do we just like write NA on that where the NRCS is supposed to sign off, or?
I would need a little more information from you, Casey, and maybe it's a good kind of shoot me an email on exactly what projects are going to fall outside of that so we can work together. It is something on the cost share that is usually required. So we'd have to kind of go through, if it's a special circumstance, then we may have to ask for some permissions on bypassing that.
Okay, so just like a quick example, and you don't have to answer this right now, but maybe to think about it is like pest control falls into one of our matching grant projects.
Okay.
So
yeah, and I can work with you. I'd have to, unfortunately, that's not one I have an answer for off the top of my head. It's not super common. So I know we've done them in the past. I just need to go back and look through things and make sure I give you a correct answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Were there any other questions out there? It's a quiet group today. All right, well, hopefully that means I've answered some of the questions you came with today. Again, if you guys have any questions come up later or things like Casey's that are specific to your grant project, feel free to reach out to me by phone or email. I'm happy to assist you in any way that I can, or we can go back through the operations site and guidelines and things like that. I'm always happy to set aside time for that. So let me know if you guys need anything from me, and thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day, everybody.